Hello, 8Cs, receiving students and teachers. Thank you, take your seats. Special hello goes to the receiving students of Ward Strip 8A, 8B, and 8F with their teachers, Mrs. Kali, Mr. Kakale, and Miss Wia. Right, let's now begin with what we have for today's lesson. In today's lesson, we are now on the same strand, which is living things. Our substrand, we are on the new substrand, which is ecology, relationships, and interactions. Receiving teachers, we are on a new outcome as well, which is 8.2.2. Let's have Edward to quickly read the outcome for us.
Draw conclusion regarding the effects of excessive use of non-biodegradable materials on food webs.
Thank you, Edward. So that is our new outcome for this today and onwards. Let's look at our unit topic. Our unit topic is how we live together, and our lesson topic for today is food chain. I'm sure in grade 7 you have learned something about food chain. I'd like you, model class and receiving students, to turn to the person sitting next to you and try to find out what is a food chain. Thank you. Please do that for a couple of seconds. All right, Angeline, can you tell us what is a food chain?
A cycle of food.
Very good. That's how she understands what is a food chain. What about Justin?
A certain pattern of food.
Good. Francis, would you like to try? Thank you, Francis. Get ready, Gima.
The food cycle of living things.
Thank you, Francis, for that answer. Gima?
Different food eaten by different species.
Thank you. So I'm sure model class and the receiving students, you have your definition, own definition of what is a food chain. Let's have a look at my definition about a food chain. A food chain simply shows how energy flows from one living thing to another. Or you can say what one eats. Okay, in here, we see that energy is passed from one living thing to another. And from there we know what living thing eats another living thing, and so forth. Now let's look at the diagram here to help us understand more about food chain. The diagram here on the monitor shows arrows. There are 3 arrows and 4 words in these 4 boxes. The first one, we have the sun. We all know that energy is passed from the sun to the plants. Do you think plants use the energy of the sun to make food? Yes or no? Yes. Of course, plants do need energy from the sun to make their own food. And in this example here, we have the grass. Grass gets its energy from the sun. And what's in the grass, the energy in the grass is passed on to the grasshopper. The grasshopper gets its energy from the grass, which means it eats the grass. Is that true? Yes. And from the grasshopper, the energy is passed on to the, what is it, class? The bird, all right? And you will find that the bird can only eat, not only eat, sorry, the bird eat other insects apart from the grasshopper. But in this example here, we have the grasshopper, right? So you can see that energy is passed on to from one living thing to another. Now, think about what you have eaten this morning or what you have eaten last night, your dinner time, right? Now let's have a look at some more examples on the food chain. All right, arrows here shows, you see all these arrows here shows the direction in which energy flows from one living thing or passes from one living thing to another. So in a food chain, you will always see arrows. And what do those arrows mean? Energy, okay, passes from one living thing to another. Now let's see the first picture. Okay, the first picture here shows the sun. Okay, we all get our energy from the sun, indirectly and directly. The next living thing that we see, okay, comes the plants. What eats the plant, class? Okay, the grasshopper again eats the plant. And what eats the grasshopper? Can someone guess? All right, let's see. Okay, this is a frog. A frog feeds on the grasshopper. The energy in the grasshopper is now passed on to the frog. And what feeds on the frog? Let's have a look at it. Yes, you are correct. Oh, the snake now feeds on the frog. And guess what feeds on the snake? Right in here we have the fox. We don't have fox in PNG, but you can think of other animals that feed on the snake apart from fox. And last one, what feeds on the fox? Right, good. You are correct by saying a bird, or a bird that feeds on flesh is called a vulture. Right? So we find that there are certain animals that feed on animals, and there are certain animals that feed only on plants. Now, what do we call those animals that feed on plants alone and not on other animals? Tanabik?
Herbivores.
Very good. Receiving students, I'm sure you have the same answer as Tanabik. Let's hear from Rachel. Rachel, what do we call those animals that feed on animals, other animals, and not on plants?
Carnivores.
Very good. Right? You have learned that in grade 7, the different terms used to describe animals that feed on other animals or plants. And what do we call those animals that feed on both plants and animals? Let's hear from Aloysia.
Omnivores.
Very good. All right, you all agree with that answer? Okay, good. Now, so we called all those, the plants are called producers because they produce for other living things like animals. Then we have others like herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. Now let's begin with what we have to do for today's activity. All right, activity 1 for receiving teachers. I hope you have your cards ready for your students in their groups. Every student should have 5 cards each, and you should make sure that everybody in the group has all those cards with them. Now this is what you will be doing. Class, let's read the instruction together. Write the names of different All right, good. Group leaders, please distribute 5 cards each to your group members. As soon as you get your card, on each of those cards, I'd like you to write an organism. Can be a plant or an animal on each of those cards. Thank you. Let's see which group is going to be the first one and is ready for the next activity. Okay, any organisms that you can think of. I know you know a lot of animals and types of plants. You write 5 of them down in each of those cards. One card should have one kind of organism. Okay, if you are lost, then look up here. Okay, you have 5 cards, and on each of the cards, you write down one organism that you can think of. So, if I'd like card number 1 to be frog, then I write frog. Okay. Organisms include both plants and animals. Okay, let's see. Good. Go on. The next one. Thank you. You're on the second one? Yes. Good. That's okay. After the lesson. All right. Who's on the second one? Still on the first one. Come on. You should be on your third card now. Each of those cards. One animal to one card. No, you have your own, so you complete. students, I hope you have completed the first part of this activity 1, which is activity 1A. Let's go on to activity 1B. Okay. The next thing you are going to do with your cards, you will arrange your cards and create a food chain. Then, after doing that, you are to discuss and confirm your food chain with the other group member or with the person sitting next to you. Okay. So now you try, from what you have written on the cards, you create a food chain. Let's see. Come on, talk among yourselves. You create a food chain yourself and you ask your friends to confirm it whether your food chain is correct or wrong. If you make a mistake, then you can write at the back of your stick-on. Okay, good. Shane, quickly. Let's see. No need to make mistakes. Take them out. You take your stick-on out and you in order. Arrange them in order to make a food chain. Yes. No, you do your own first and later you twist. That's going to be the third activity. Alright, let's see. Ayono. Okay, you take them out now and you create a food chain. What it's what and what it's what. Well, you can should be comparing each other's food chain, making sure to see that the flow of energy is correct from one living thing to another. All right, let's move on to the next activity, same activity, letter C. Okay. Now I'd like you to paste your food chain on the chart. So if you are 5 of you in the group, you should have 5 different food chain pasted on the chart. Okay, receiving teachers, please distribute posters or A3 papers to each of the groups for them to paste their food chains. Okay. Yes. play on that food chain. Okay? Your role play should include yourself becoming something. And for example, if you're a frog, then you say, I am a frog, and you explain your position. Why you are in that position, the second or the third or the fourth in the food chain. Okay? So you will try to explain your position for this role play. Okay, out of all this, thank you. That's really good. You will choose one and you will do a role play on that. If you say you're a lion, you must tell us why you are the last person on the chain. You're a dog, say why. Or who eats what, and so on. Okay, out of the 5 that you came up with, you choose one and you will do a role play on that chain. Everybody in the group, somebody, and explain why you are in that position. Why are you known as the plant? Why are you known as a crocodile or fox? What's your position? Okay? No insect. No insect. No insect. You got insect now. Time up. No insect. Time up. Huh? Still playing God. Time up for what? Activity. All right, I'm sure you're discussing about your role play. We'll stop here. Maybe we'll find some time to do our role play. Let's now go on to the next part of this lesson. We are going to watch a short video on the ecosystem again, and that video will also emphasize more on what we have done in today's lesson. Okay, sitting up straight and let's begin.
Hundreds of thousands of different types of creatures live on the Earth. A group of individuals of a single type that live together is called a population. These geese make up one kind of population. This school of fish makes up another. So does this field of grass plants. A collection of different populations that live together and depend on one another for food and shelter is called a community. Populations of plants and algae are members of nearly all communities because they are the food of plant-eating animal populations called herbivores. Herbivore populations are important to a community because they are the food of flesh-eating animals called carnivores. It takes a great number of plants to supply enough food for one herbivore. Because of this, a typical community has many more plants than herbivores. In the same way, many herbivores are required to provide enough food for a single carnivore. This pattern, from numerous plants to fewer herbivores to even fewer carnivores, is called the pyramid of numbers. You can find this pattern in all communities. Because shrubs are the most numerous in the forest community list, they are at the bottom of the pyramid of numbers. Rabbits eat plants, so they are herbivores. Because there are fewer rabbits than plants, rabbits are located above plants in the pyramid. Finally, foxes eat meat. They are carnivores. Because there are fewer foxes than either rabbits or plants, foxes are located at the top of the pyramid. The most numerous creature in the prairie community list is grass. Prairie dogs are next. They find the prairie grass very tasty. Finally, at the top of the pyramid are owls, carnivores who are always on the lookout for a prairie dog meal. A community is changed as one population interacts with another. It's also changed by the physical environment that surrounds it. Weather, soil, water. All of these and more make up a community's physical environment. For example, jungles are hot and humid. The temperature varies little from day to night or from season to season, so the physical environment of jungles is pretty constant. The community of plants and animals in jungles is strongly affected by these constant conditions. By comparison, tide pools along the coast are very changeable places. The tide pool community is affected by pounding waves, drastically changing temperatures, and by the fact that it is submerged by the ocean tides each day. The interaction of the physical environment and the living community is called an ecosystem. There are many types of ecosystems: deserts, marshes, beaches, even urban and backyard ecosystems. No matter where you live, you're part of an ecosystem. But keep in mind that ecosystem is only one of many that makes up the ecology of the earth.
Yeah, I hope you have enjoyed watching the short video on the ecosystem, again reminding us of our last lessons that we have gone through. And you have also heard about the different terms that were used for different living things, like what feeds on what and so forth. So again, food chain varies from different and types of environment. In a grassland environment, the food chain is different from the sea or the river environment. Now let's have a look at our our key word for today is chain, and our next lesson will be on food web. With that, thank you class for participating.